Hi, my name is Barby. I don't like assholes. Unfortunately, a lot of people that come in and out of my life have sociopathic tendencies. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, sociopath is just a medical term. You can be a sociopath and still be a good person. This is debatable. So, sociopaths cannot feel empathy, they cannot feel guilt, and they cannot feel remorse. So they will not regret pushing you down a flight of stairs. They might think, hey, that was a pretty shitty thing to do on principle, but they'll only think that with the logic aspect of their mind. The emotional aspect is pretty filtered down if it's even there at all. So that is my introduction. Sociopaths, within reason, are not pleasant people to be around. Apologies if you have antisocial personality disorder, but I don't feel the need to censor myself. That being said, it has been a theme in my past, not precisely mine, but a lot of my close friends growing up too, where they'll date these really shitty dirtbag guys. Now, I'm not gonna say I never have. My boyfriend in high school was a real piece of shit. But mind you, a pattern I had noticed with a lot of these people is that they often claim possession. They often claim that there is something hovering over them, making them do the outrageous and crazy things that they do. This doesn't just apply to men. I've met a lot of women who are like this too, who will do things to deliberately fuck over other girls they're supposed to be friends with, or just other people in general, and then say things like the devil made them do it. Especially if you are friends with a kind of alternative crowd, or rather just people that are into this kind of occult stuff, you'll find that excuse a lot, and you'll often find that those people like to really embrace that whole demonic thing. They like to really, really blame it on somebody from the Key of Solomon. Whether or not they actually know the details about said demon is unbeknownst to me or you. They just want something to blame it on that isn't themselves. So today, I'm going to talk about how to tell if you're dealing with a possessed asshole or just a general asshole. So, if you don't hang out with people that are really into this esoteric stuff, you might not get this excuse a lot. So I recognize it's going to be kind of obscure. That's why I'm putting a little bit of a comedic edge to it, so that maybe at least you can laugh. So, when I was in high school, an excuse I used to hear from a lot of people are that they had some like doppelganger of themselves doing this shit, and that it had black eyes. Like, all I gotta say about that is that they've watched Donnie Darko one too many times. Because I cannot even tell you how many people I have sat there with and watched Donnie Darko and then heard them go on an entire side tangent about, hey, that's totally me. I see Bunny's name Frank. But no, the fuck you don't. No, you don't. So, first of all, I've also dealt with a good number of actually legitimately possessed people, at least people I believe to be under the influence of some sort of demonic activity. It's pretty distinct. So the first thing to know is that if the person in your life has a problem with drugs or alcohol, or is even known to abuse drugs and alcohol relatively often, there is a good shot at them being possessed. When you over-abuse those things and you don't have your own consciousness, God knows what can filter in and out of it. It just makes you easy bait for demons, really, because they can just come in and fuck with you, and you might just pass it off as like, oh, it's just because I'm high, or because I'm on this, or because I'm on that. But it's really just the perfect cocktail for demonic possession. It's the perfect thing to do to invite them to come in and just take over your soul. And some people who are watching this are going to be like, this is so overdramatic. But here's the thing. We have to call these things what they actually are. You do have a soul. If you didn't have a soul, you wouldn't even know, you would have no sense of identity. You would not be able to categorize yourself as you are. You would just be this shell, this sack of bones and tissue walking around all the time. But because you do have a sense of identity and it's separate from anybody else's, that must mean you have a soul. That must mean you have more than just this physical shell. Your brain can do so much, but it can't do everything. So, yeah, abusing drugs, abusing any mind-altering substance, really, which by definition is a drug, is one way to get super close to the underworld, super close to these demonic entities that are so feared, even in popular culture, and have been since, like, before movies were even being made. So if you have somebody in your life that abuses these things time and time and time again, and claims to maybe, be possessed, it's just worth considering. because I have seen a lot of cases like such. Okay, so people who irresponsibly use Ouija boards might be possessed. It is not a secret that Ouija boards are one way to get extremely close to the spiritual world, and that malevolent spirits are known to lie through Ouija boards. That's because it is so easy to convince you you're talking to your dead grandmother, or you're talking to your childhood friend who drowned in the lake. But realistically speaking, whoever this is might just know those things about you, might just want to play on your emotions until you cannot stop coming back to the board and doing whatever it is they say to you. Sometimes if a Ouija board doesn't work, you should really take that as a blessing. But for people who think it's just a game, for people who just want to, do it because it's a cool Halloween prank, something like that, they're putting themselves in a kind of dangerous predicament. You can very easily contact unclean spirits, unclean things, etc. And yeah, it's very, very easy for them to slip their way inside you and just take over. So if you know this person irresponsibly, play around with occult items, rituals, things like that, again, there is a very good chance that they could be under some kind of influence. So, but this one's a little bit more obscure, and I know not everyone is going to agree with me on this one, but there are things I have noticed that relate directly to this type of injury. Specifically a head injury. A lot of serial killers and a lot of notoriously evil men and women have been known to have had head injuries in their youth. Or for instance, they might have fallen off a swing set when they were younger, or gotten a piece of metal lodged into their brain, things like that. But it is not uncommon. So these people and a lot of documented criminals will actually grow up to say things like, they don't know why this happened because somebody else made them do it, or they felt like they were very out of body when it was happening. Now, it can't be a coincidence that a lot of these people have had the same type of injuries, skull injuries, head injuries. It does something to you. So this is obviously not scientifically confirmed, and it's not even esoterically confirmed, but it is worth noting that this is a common denominator, and it could very well be a gateway to some type of malevolent spiritual energy. I'm not saying that everyone who has a concussion is going to be possessed next week, but I am saying that it does seem to be a common thing amongst those who claim to be possessed. Also, other signs of it are things like increased profanity. If this person doesn't really curse a lot, but all of a sudden everything is fuck this, shit that, that's a good sign of it. Linguistically also, if they suddenly know how to speak languages that you've never heard them speak before, or they know passages from texts that that they have never read, that's also a pretty good sign that something might be going on. So, obviously, it's more likely that whatever asshole you're dealing with is not possessed and simply wants an excuse to be an asshole. That is probably what you're looking at, because in most cases that is true. But there could be the occasion where you run into somebody that actually might have connections with an unsavory spirit, and if that's the case, it's always important to keep your wits about you and to protect yourself. Something that I personally notice is that the eyes can say a lot of things. I have looked into some people's eyes and seen genuine evil that I felt like was subhuman. But obviously, you are going to be the best judge of this kind of thing, because even when I saw that, I knew I could not physically explain it to anyone. I knew I could not put into words the way it made me feel. But I do know that it's particular. It's almost as though you are led to question everything you thought you knew about humanity. It's almost as though you are led to think, what could drive somebody to reach this point of crazy? But is it crazy, or is it somebody else outside the entire body possessing this person to do these things? So, again, I would like to touch on the subject that we cannot necessarily prove that the people, such as the criminals I listed, Arthur Shawcross is a good example of one. He was known to have murdered a lot of prostitutes and then say that while he was doing it, he didn't even realize what he was doing. It was like he was out of body. Same with Ken Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler. He also, described a whole notion of not being himself, of not knowing where these things came from. So it is possible. It is something to consider. But it cannot be written off as scientific fact that these people were possessed, but it does seem a bit likely. If you really think about it, if you're so out of body that you don't realize what it is you're doing, could it be that you're sharing your body? Could it be that someone else is inhabiting that body with you? As far as ways to protect yourself, if you really are under the impression that the asshole is possessed and is not just an asshole, there's only so much you can do while keeping yourself safe. If you are not completely connected to this person, then it is best to kind of just move on the same way you would if they were just an asshole. If this is someone you genuinely care about, I would advise to seek help for them if you cannot do a cleansing yourself. And obviously, make sure all your protections are in order. Make sure you have all the symbols you need, all the sigils you need. Make sure you do all the protection work you need to before you take this on by yourself. So, side note, demonic possession doesn't always look like it does in movies. There can be some cases, such as Anneliese Michel, a German girl, of extreme, grotesqueness, like defecation, throwing up, all the stuff you see in stuff like The Exorcist, or more particularly, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which was a movie about Anneliese Michel. But there can also be subtle signs. Sometimes them seeing things out of the corner of their eye they can't seem to get away from, seeming very scared, an increased, like I said before, an increased usage of drugs or alcohol. There are a lot of things that can contribute to demonic possession, and there are different layers to possession. It should not be used as an excuse to just do harm on whoever or whatever, though. And just keep in mind, possessed or not, your safety is what comes first, and if someone is making you uncomfortable, that is enough of a reason to hightail it and get out of there and away from the negative energy. So, my name is Barbie. This has been Asshole or Possessed, and if you still don't know, odds are you should probably just cut ties in the first place. I'm going to go eat my sandwich now. It is a bagel. It has salt on it. It also has ketchup, Taylor ham, hash browns, and eggs. And I know you're very jealous of me, but I can't share it with you because you're over there and I'm over here. Thank you.